Hello, all you freedom-loving people. The Trump administration continues to defund DEI and to decouple from China, so Xi Jinping is visiting his neighbors for support, and it turns out the CCP's tentacles run deep in Canada. Okay, let's get into it. On Monday, Harvard University rejected the Trump administration's demand that the school change its policies or risk the loss of nearly $9 billion in federal funding as a consequence. The federal government announced the same day that it is freezing $2.2 billion in grants and $60 million in contracts to Harvard. The dispute stems from the Trump administration's request to the Ivy League university 2 weeks ago to cancel its DEI program and to screen international students on whether they support terrorism, anti-Semitism, and are hostile to American values and institutions as enshrined in the U.S. Constitution and the Declaration of Independence. The Trump administration is not singling out Harvard for this policy, since it has previously taken similar measures against another Ivy League school, Columbia University. Columbia has met most of the administration's requirements and is on track to restore federal funding. However, Harvard University considers that the request made by the federal government exceeds the government's statutory authority. It infringes on Harvard University's rights that are protected by the First Amendment of the Constitution, that is, the rights of freedom of speech and freedom of belief, and it threatens Harvard University's values as a private institution. Harvard President Alan Garber told students and faculty, "We have informed the administration through our legal counsel that we will not accept their proposed agreement. The university will not negotiate over its independence or its constitutional rights." In his letter, Garber argues that Harvard has taken various steps to combat anti-Semitism, and they will continue to work on this issue, but that the administration's demands go far beyond that goal. So Harvard faces a shutdown of nearly $9 billion in federal funding. This includes more than $255 million worth of contracts between the university, its affiliates, and the federal government, as well as multi-year government commitments of up to $8.7 billion. We've spent the past few days analyzing the goals and strategies of the tariff war initiated by President Trump. So what is the CCP's response other than to keep raising tariffs in retaliation? First, the CCP retaliated by imposing tariffs and export controls on rare earth minerals. To date, these exports have been completely halted, cutting off exports to the United States and other countries, including to the U.S. as well as Japan and Germany. Any exports of minerals and magnets now require special licenses, but China has yet to fully establish a system for issuing them. Rare earths should be considered since China has a highly lopsided advantage in global trade. China has a stranglehold on global supplies of rare earths and magnets at this point. China's trade partners like the U.S. rely on rare earths as critical inputs for the auto, chip, aerospace, and defense industries. But even after the Trump administration announced a series of tariff exemptions for China for key technology imports, China's magnet exports remained stalled through the weekend. On Monday, Kevin Hassett, the National Economic Council director, acknowledged concern, and he told reporters outside the White House the rare earth limits are being studied very carefully, and they're concerning, and we're thinking about all the options right now. However, Elon Musk downplayed the fears over the scarcity of these materials. Musk said on X, "People understandably tend to think that rare earth mineral deposits are what's scarce, given the name. That is false. They're everywhere." Musk emphasized that the actual problem is not the purchasing of rare earths, but the large-scale processing of rare earths. He said, "What matters is the ability to refine rare earth elements, which are not actually meaningfully rare, and manufacture magnets for use in electric motors. China's strength is that their heavy industry for refining these minerals is massive, and that's the weakness of the Western supply chain because the West hasn't bothered to invest in it for years." Before I move on, I want to thank all our viewers for your support. Your support here has really helped us to get to where we are today. We know our content deserves to be spread all around the world, and so in order to make a breakthrough, we'd like to ask everyone to leave a comment below the video. You could simply just post an American flag emoji. This will help boost the engagement rate, and it will help the algorithm to recommend our video throughout YouTube. And with your continued support, we're confident that we'll be here with all you freedom-loving people long into the future, because everybody deserves to know the truth. Okay, let's get back into it. Another measure taken by the CCP was to build up a so-called Asian Friends Circle by drawing in Southeast Asian countries. Communist Party chief Xi Jinping kicked off a 5-day visit to 3 Southeast Asian countries on Monday, covering Vietnam, Malaysia, and Cambodia. His first stop was Vietnam, where he stayed for 2 days. Vietnam was also the most important country on the trip, and a bit of a headache for the CCP, especially after Vietnam set the tone of not confronting the U.S. on tariffs. After President Trump announced reciprocal tariffs, Vietnam's leader was the first country leader to take the initiative to call President Trump and offer to negotiate. It was certainly a decision that was made by the leaders of this country after continuous meetings and listening to business. According to Vietnamese media reports, Vietnam Communist Party Secretary To Lam said in a conversation with President Trump that Vietnam is willing to negotiate with the U.S. to reduce tariffs on U.S. imports to zero. He also suggested that the U.S. side give equal treatment to Vietnamese goods, continue to expand imports from the U.S. of goods in demand in Vietnam, and create conditions for U.S. businesses to increase investment in Vietnam. In fact, after President Trump took office, Vietnam has begun to voluntarily lower tariffs on 23 categories of imports, some at rates lower than U.S. tariffs on Vietnam. At the same time, Vietnam has also pushed for the purchase of 250 Boeing airlines, some military aircraft, and $6 billion worth of LNG, totaling more than $90 billion in U.S. goods. But that may not be enough for President Trump. What he's most concerned about is what Vietnam will do about origin fraud and improper transshipment. Vietnam is serving as a backdoor for Chinese goods. This is a concern of the United States, and it's an important reason for the CCP's reiteration of the China-Vietnam friendship in a high-profile manner. After all, the annual trade in products that are imported into the United States via Vietnam and other Southeast Asian countries is huge. Xi's visit to the 3 Southeast Asian countries is also aimed at deepening industrial chain cooperation and through them to serve as a trade buffer zone to diversify trade risks and to hedge against the pressure exerted by the United States. That's why Xi Jinping handed Vietnam a series of favorable agreements as well. The two sides signed a series of memorandums in areas including strengthening cooperation in supply chains, railroad development, and environmental protection. Vietnam said that China and Vietnam will speed up an $8 billion railway project connecting the two countries in a deal that was approved in February. So what will Vietnam choose? Will it fully cooperate with the U.S. and help the U.S. shut down the CCP's transshipment trade, or will it accept the CCP's subsidies and partially meet the U.S. demands? We don't know yet, but Vietnam has already benefited from the confrontation between Beijing and Washington. Companies from various countries that are trying to de-link their supply chain from China are relocating to Vietnam, and Vietnam made an unprecedented request to Xi Jinping during this reception. Vietnam hopes that the historical issues such as border territories could be properly dealt with through exchanges. China and Vietnam have real long-term differences, including territorial disputes in the South China Sea, but they do not often publicize the confrontations. That is to say, the CCP cannot satisfy Vietnam this time only by increasing investment, assistance, and cooperation. The CCP must also make concessions on territorial and maritime disputes. According to CCP insiders, the potential allies that the CCP wants to bring together are not limited to these neighbors in Southeast Asia. Among the European countries, the CCP is targeting France, Germany, and the United Kingdom. In North America, the CCP is targeting Canada. Canada was chosen not only because it's the US's northern neighbor, but also because of the shocking depth of Chinese communist infiltration there already. Over the weekend, a powerful new investigative map that was released by diaspora researchers traces political ties reaching from Chinese Communist Party-controlled intelligence networks to the highest levels in Canada. This chart meticulously outlines the intricate connections between the CCP's United Front work system and Canadian politics, particularly in British Columbia. Yuan Pao Wu was appointed to the Senate by Prime Minister Justin Trudeau in 2016, and he has been accused of playing a key role in pushing CCP-related entities into Canadian institutions. He helped the CCP's Poly Group enter Canada. The Poly Group is a state-owned enterprise that is linked to the People's Liberation Army in China. He also secured a multi-million-dollar partnership with the mysterious CCP entity through HQ Vancouver in British Columbia. This all happened during the rule of former BC Premier Christy Clark. A secret recording in 2020 revealed that Yuan Pao Wu promised the United Front activists that he would help shield them from critical scrutiny. And these United Front entities have also been honored by Beijing for promoting Chinese-Canadian candidates in federal elections. In addition, Wu has close ties to the Asia-Pacific Foundation of Canada and a number of think tanks that are associated with the International Liaison Department, which is the intelligence agency of the CCP. Another person named was former BC Minister Teresa Watt. She extended Belt and Road cooperation to British Columbia, and she joined Huawei and a local telecom firm in 5G research initiatives. She participated in multiple Chinese-affiliated delegations, and she came from a background in Chinese state-linked media. Ding Guo, the current advisor to the Premier of BC, is also on the map. Guo is a journalist from Shanghai who transitioned into a leadership role in BC Chinese language media and political mobilization. He is the founder of the Canada Committee 100 Society. He was personally nominated by the Premier of British Columbia, David Eby, to receive the King Charles III Coronation Medal for his community influence. So what did he do with his influence? Ding Guo's Canadian Committee of 100 was praised by the CCP's official media for its voter education, mobilization, and fundraising efforts in the 2019 Canadian federal election. Kenny Jong, a reporter for Rise Media, played a key role in the 2021 election. At the time, Ding supported Liberal Party candidate Parm Bains, helping him defeat the Conservative Party MP. With the 2025 federal election just around the corner, this research map is a wake-up call for Canadian voters. Canadians need to know the truth, and the world must come to grips with this crisis. And that's a wrap for this episode. Thank you so much for your support of Front Page. Please remember that every like, comment, and share helps more people to see the truth. If you haven't already, please subscribe. And if you have already subscribed, we thank you, but please double check to make sure that you're still subscribed, because some of our audience have reported that they're somehow unsubscribed without their knowledge. We've also heard that some of you don't get notifications of our videos anymore on YouTube. So when you do subscribe on YouTube, please make sure to tap the notification bell as well. Okay, this is our show for today. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you like what you heard today, please don't forget to like this video and share it with your friends and family, because everybody deserves to know the truth.